There is a quorum.
Guess good. Yeah, call to order our Guthrie Public Works Authority meeting workshop of December 7th. Second item is the discussion possible action on the Guthrie Solid Waste service rate schedule. Leroy.
Whoa. That's what I got going on too, like that.
So Christmas songs or?
We'll sing.
I'm too dedicated.
Last summer, we went through a series of workshops leading up to our retreat. And at that time, we did, on June 1st, a workshop on our solid waste or garbage rates. And we showed, see if this is turned on. Yeah. We showed from 2011 the margin that we made, and as the cost charged by Waste Connections went up, we did not, as a city, do rate increases. Our last rate increase was in 2006, over 14 years ago. And you can see we did a 12% increase at that time to catch up. And if you look at, if we were to maintain that margin, this is how much revenue that we have foregone because we were not maintaining our rate schedule, equivalent to what we did when we initially signed the contract with Solid Waste or Waste Connections in early 2000s. That margin, of course, there's overhead involved that comes to the city. We do the billing, so there's justification for us to have margin. But the monthly rates, $13.24 all that time. You can see in 2001, Waste Connections was at $7.45 monthly rate to $8.24, and a 10.6% increase. So if hypothetical, if we adjusted our rates each year to keep up, based on their 2020, we would go to $14.65 as compared to $13.24 when you look at it total. Now I've got a bigger spreadsheet that we'll go over that has breakdown of all the different categories of customers that we'll walk through. But clearly, if we're going to maintain the revenue stream to operate the city, we need to take a serious look at not only increasing this, and I will point out as we go through this, this was based on their rate schedule for 2020. In October for 2022, there's an additional 2% increase that we will have to adjust for once you all tell us how you want to handle this. If you look at where we are, Guthrie, 1 week pickup once a week is $14.65 inside, $20 outside is some comparison, and you can see where we are compared to other cities on what they charge for residential 1 time a week. So we're not out of line. This is where we're at now. If we go to $14.65, we'll still be, there will only be 1 community lower than us on that comparison. I'm going to go through this spreadsheet that's on your desk in just a minute. some of the things on this spreadsheet, and I emailed it out to you quite some time ago, it was interesting, and things we'll need to talk about when we go through this. The markup on commercial customers is about 28%. The markup on residential is 44%, and that kind of surprised me when I did the spreadsheet. You know, you look at cost of service, but I didn't think that, and I did not see anywhere where that format was ever discussed on why we put more burden on the residential customers than we did the commercial customers. The state fee is not incorporated into the rate structure at all. We just eat that. That's about $14,000 a year, and I'll show that. And then we had a couple of rate structures. An additional polycar outside the city is $11.20 is what we charge, but we pay Waste Connections $14.52. So we lose on that particular service. On a 3-yard dumpster twice a week, we're at $102 is what we charge the customer, but we pay Waste Connections $108. So some of those we clearly need to correct. We shouldn't be charging less than what's costing us. And then finally, as we go through this, there is no markup on AutoQuit, Walmart, and Love's Travel Stop. Whatever our charge from Waste Connections, that's what we charge them. If it's $100, we bill them $100. So there is no markup. As I indicated, the spreadsheet that we'll be going over is based on the rates that were in effect last budget year. In October, those went up 2%. I've not updated this spreadsheet yet because of all the other items we have on our regular meeting. But once I get your guidance, I will update that. Before we go to the large spreadsheet, there was some discussion back in June about going to Waste Connections to see if they would be willing to give a rate decrease adjustment and locking it in for multiple years in return for Guthrie extending their contract for additional years in lieu of putting the services out for bid in 2023 when their contract's up. Response I got was that it was not a good year for them to take a decrease, but they would be willing to maybe talk about future and doing some kind of rate lock-in for future years, and they would be willing to discuss that. But the current year, they just didn't feel like with the cost increases they had that they could do a decrease. So that's the feedback I got from them based on that question. So if you turn the lights back on, now I'm gonna go through this large spreadsheet. I tried to print it out on 2 pages where it was a little easier to read than what was in your agenda packet. So the first column right here is the charges from Waste Connections for before their 2% increase in October of 2021. And you can see that the state fee annually, I took one bill and then I took it times 12 to annualize it rather than try to put total 12 bills up. It's roughly $13,000. And then the office that they use, we get a deduct of $250 a month for them being able to use that office. Residential rates, there's 3,593 single-family rates that we pay Waste Connections $8.35. And you can just go through. It has inside city limits and outside city limits. The one I highlighted in yellow is the one that I pointed out, we actually paid Waste Connections more than we charge for that service. But total residential, our invoice for that month, invoice of August 12th, 2021, was $38,903.96. If you analyze that, our cost for residential customers inside the city and outside was $466,847.52. Then below is the commercial, and there's a list of all the different types of commercials, the different sizes, whether it's once a week, twice a week. Again, if you go about a third of the way through in gold is the 30-yard twice a week, where we actually pay Waste Connections more than we charge. But commercial at the bottom, this yellow line right here, the bill for that 1 month was $42,018.56. And you annualize that, it's $504,222.73. And then AutoQuip, Walmart, and Love's was just over 4,000. And you analyze that, it's 49,000. So if you look in the blue at the total, it was the bill for August of 2021 was $85,885.78. You annualize that, take it times 12, it's $1,030,629.33 is what you would come up with for a year's worth of payments if you just take 1 month billing times 12. Now, it's not an exact number because you'd have to take every month and add it up to have an exact number. I'm not going to get into the convenience center rates at this time. It's a little more complicated, and we need to do a little more study on that before we start talking about the convenience. The second column is what we charge. If you look at the state fee, we don't have that at all. So we eat that $13,361 off the top annually. But if you look at residential rates, just as an example, a single family rate, we pay Waste Connections $8.35, and we charge $13.24. So our revenue is $47,000, analyzed $570,000. So our net revenue, when you take the difference, is $17,000 a month, or $200,000 a year, is our net revenue on that customer class. So if you go down to the bottom on the residential rates inside the city and the outside the city for residential, our annual revenue on residential is $747,612.72, compared to we pay $466,847, so our margin is $280,000 or 38%. Same thing if you look at commercial. If you go down to the bottom, all the different categories of commercial service, 504,000 is a little over. That's what we pay Waste Connections. If you annualize the August bill, we pay our revenue is about 634,000, or, and then our net is 130,237. That's a 21% markup, as compared to 38% markup on the residential customers. If you look at AutoQuip, Walmart, and Love's, there is no markup. So whatever we are charged, that's what we charge the customer. So there is no markup on those three. So if you look at the total down in the blue, if you analyze the August bill, we would have paid $1,030,629 to Waste Connections. We would have billed our customers $1,420,908, and our markup would have been $400,641, or 28%. You may want to tear your two sheets apart. I stapled them so they would stay together, so that you can maybe compare. In the green on the second sheet, I put the increases that we experienced from Waste Connections over the years. And then the far right, I have put a spreadsheet together showing that if we did a 10.6% rate increase, and if you take the monthly rate that is the first column on the first sheet, you can even fold it if you want to. But if you lay those side by side, you can see that single-family rate, if you did a 10.6% increase, their rate would go from $13.24 a month to $14.64. So about $1.40 a month. And so you can compare all the way down the line. These are not substantial increases by going 10%. But our margin would go up by the 10% increase. And on residential, if you did a 10% increase, our revenue would go up 80,000. If you look on the far right in the blue, I've circled it in red. And if you look at the bottom for commercial, our revenue would go up 67,240. If we did across the board 10%. Of course, if we don't adjust AutoQuip, Walmart, and Love's, there would not be any additional revenue on those. So with a 10% increase, which is not a substantial increase per customer, it would increase our revenue $146,309. Questions I could answer?
So, on the AutoQuip, Walmart, and Love's, why did we, I mean, obviously none of us were involved in that back then.
We may have to reach out to them. I have not found anything, and I'm not aware of anybody that's currently on city staff that knows why that arrangement was there. And Waste Connections didn't know either why it was just a pass-through. So we'll probably have to reach out to those three. I would think even if you did something as an incentive to recruit, that eventually that incentive would go away. It wouldn't be forever.
Well, yeah.
But you would have found that incentive probably,
You would have thought that we would, but,
or
you
they'd have
know,
to prove it out.
when you go through as many records as we have at the city, we could have overlooked it, but I would think that if they had some deal, that they would be able to provide it to us when we asked them.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, I agree with Brian. That's the first thing that I think needs to be certainly explored and fixed if there's no legal rationale for keeping it that way. I think that's egregious. The other thing is that it would seem to me that the commercial margin should be bigger than the residential margin.
Well, the question is, how do you do that now? It's so skewed.
Just
Well,
like
you just-
I mean,
Walmart raises their prices.
And you start it, you gotta start someplace.
Well,
You gotta start
if-
someplace.
If you all, depending on your instructions tonight, the way we could start doing it is if you wanted it to be closer, in lieu of doing a 10.6% increase on residential, we might do 1% or 0 and leave them the same, and then increase the commercial so that it levels out where the markup on commercial is similar. So we can play with that, but before I spend all my time, because putting these spreadsheets together takes a couple hours. But what I could do is do some columns and say, okay, if we do this to residential and this to commercial, this would be the rates. And then if we change that mix, so, you know, if we did 4% residential and 12% increase on commercial, here's how it would turn out. And then if 2%, so I could give different scenarios for you to look at.
But that still kind of puts us in a Peter to Paul thing, as far as we're not gonna affect the residential, we're gonna put more of it on the back of the commercial.
Correct.
I think, you know, the residential needs to be where it needs to be, and the commercial needs to be where it needs to be. You might do a deal with the commercial, doing it more of a yearly crawl it up so much each year to get it up closer to where we want, because if we just take it off of the residential, well, then the next thing we're gonna have is, well, that part's not paying its share. And another thing to look at, which nobody's gonna wanna hear this, but with the rates you're talking about, the increase, that's just gonna make us even. And we're gonna be talking about it next year.
What I would
More than
suggest
likely.
is that we adopt a resolution that automatically increases rates every year we get a rate increase from our service provider.
Yeah.
That it's automatic. So we
Just-
don't have to have the discussion
Right.
every, and we don't have to have a 10% increase every 10 years. It would just be automatic. When their rates go up, we would, just like water and sewer every year, based on consumer price index, our rates go up. This would be tied to the rates of our service provider, whether it's Waste Connections or some
You
other
know,
firm.
you would just think as a service provider, I'm in a service provider industry, that you reduce rates for customer loyalty. And something like this Waste Connections thing, okay, when this thing was done, I guarantee you fuel was a heck of a lot higher than it was in the last 2 years. And so, the whole story of we can't afford to do it, it doesn't hold a lot of water. During COVID and everything else, they still ran trash constantly.
And really, the only way, because they have an existing contract to force that, is when their contract's up in 2023.
Exactly.
That's the only way we got any leverage.
2022, you can put it out for bids, and then you.
See, I
then
wouldn't
it
think
is-
they'd want that to happen.
Well, they might change their tune.
Yeah, they should change their
Do that,
tune if
but-
they're watching.
But clearly, in 2022, you could put it out for bids for when the contracts are renew, and you would know, you would have competitive prices in, because there's not as many providers as there used to be, but there are still.
So, I got another question. On the state fee,
Yes,
I don't know how we ended up eating that. We all have to pay our taxes, you know,
Yes.
and fees and everything else. Is that fee just residential, or is that included in commercial?
I think it's both, but I would have, I'm not sure on that.
It's
I
off
didn't-
of tonnage, isn't it?
Yes.
But technically, we're not eating it, are we? Because our total net proceeds after we pay Waste Connection is we've made $33,386.
Yeah, we're making margin, but we're still eating that fee.
We're taking that out of our profits.
We're not passing it on to the customer.
We're eating the 13,000 a year on that.
So you could look at it multiple ways. The way Councilman Long looks at it is correct. We're not losing that.
Right.
We're just not making as much margin.
We're just not we're not itemizing it to the customer. We're not saying, here's your state fee, nor should we.
Right, we shouldn't.
No, so we're not, but at the end of the day.
Or I don't know that we should or we shouldn't.
No.
I don't know how other trash bills look.
But I just wanted to make sure
paying
you
it.
all were aware
We know we're paying
that
it.
that was not, and there are towns, my understanding, that incorporates that fee into their rates.
So my next question though to you is, so our total markup, all combined, is 28%.
Correct.
That's what we're making. So my question to Dawn is, what do you think we should be making?
Well, I was just going on the history. We were in the 30s. And we're about, in history, we're roughly 8 or 9% below where we started.
Okay,
And, you know, a third or something like that is what I think we want to try to keep with, because we're losing ground each year, roughly.
we're losing ground of this being a cash.
Kyle, we're actually
Now,
making
for us.
38% on
Hey,
residential.
revenue
Revenue
generator.
generator.
Yeah,
Well,
What I'm
but-
getting at is, I mean, don't get me wrong, I understand the city needs money, but as a person who lives in the city, if I see that the waste connection is getting paid, what is the percent markup? Because people that live maybe where the city doesn't do trash, they're paying their trash person direct. What, I mean, how much of a markup are we worth?
Well,
Because for what service, what other service?
Well,
are we
I was
providing for
basing
the
it off
trash?
of where we were versus where we are now. And I know we've gave up 10 or 12% since the last raise. We're just slowly going downhill to where we're subsidizing it.
But-
And you have to stop that bleed one way or the other.
But we're not subsidizing it.
Right,
It's not, we're not pulling money out of the city's coffers to pay the trash. We are making some money on trash.
right.
correct.
So we're not subsidizing it, we're just not making as much.
well, we're making 38% on the trash, not 28.
Well, when you
No.
total.
38%
Down at the bottom.
On the residential.
Residential.
I'm talking on the residential
We're
side.
talking about the
So
whole
I
package.
wouldn't raise
So-
residential at all.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. So if we
I'd
take
be
the,
ticked.
if we take the, what I'd like to see is the commercial, what does that really look like on not just getting them competitive with the residential margins, but what does it look like in other communities?
Because I personally, as a person living in the city of Guthrie, I would be upset to know that Walmart gets zero
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, me
pass
too.
through increase, and you're charging me 38%?
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think so.
But we need to find out what the commercials being charged in other communities as well, I think.
We can do that.
Kind of like you did the residential where we're at the bottom of the,
To do that, we're gonna have to actually get invoices from other communities
And
and
that's
put it on a
typical.
spreadsheet, so.
how you do that.
But you're probably right as far as the residential goes. Our margin is probably fine. But the ones that aren't doing anything, they need to be up where they're paying their share as well as commercial. And I have commercial and
Oh, I have both
residential.
too.
Yeah, so, but if our big stinker is the commercial, we need to get it more up in line. If the commercial was up in line where the residential was,
Oh, yeah,
we wouldn't be talking about it.
But if I go and get any other utilities, gas, electric, I pay a higher rate for my
Right.
commercial account than I
Right.
do for my residential account.
Yeah.
You're right.
So we're a little backwards.
Now,
Completely.
I think electric might be different. Electric, when you do rate studies for electric, it's based on
What do you
the
have?
cost of service.
If you
And-
use a
and-
lot, yeah, you can get
and-
discounts.
And the cost to serve one large
couldn't tell you what it
industry
costs, but the
is more
majority
competitive
of my
than the
bills
cost to
is
serve
trash.
one residential whose peak load is in the summertime when your electric is highest. So that's completely different than this, but electric, sometimes residential rates are higher than the commercial rates or industrial rates, because it's based on cost of service.
I just didn't know. I was thinking
Yeah.
if it would be hundreds and hundreds of
You
dollars.
guys want to let us in on the conversation?
Well, I was asking him what his commercial rate was, and so that I could get a kind of a feel for it, because I don't have a commercial business here where I'm paying trash. Okay, so if you got a $125 commercial bill, and you increased it 20% to get it exactly in line with residential, you're looking at like $25. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't gonna be hundreds and hundreds of dollars to the commercial business, you know, on an increase to just do it right up front and get it level with residential. And not even do it on a slow pace. That's what I'd like to see. What does that look like?
Yeah, I think, you know, I think what we're all saying is that we kind of want to protect the residential. That looks
We
like
should.
it's pretty much where it should be.
We have a sufficient.
We definitely need to focus on the three that aren't, there's a pass-through, commercial. We definitely need to also look at the rest of the commercial package with some kind of comparison to other cities. We need to figure out how we can, well, maybe, I think we ought to figure out how we can work in at the state tax or state fee part of it also. And then adopt some kind of a process where it goes up as our,
Yeah, not let it go
as
backwards.
the provider goes up.
Yes,
You know.
so we don't have to
And
work
these are
that
the-
years.
That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, these are the actual commercial accounts right here, right?
Correct.
And
I
so,
would also say as a person that has a commercial account, I'd be pretty upset if you come and increased my rate by 10% and Walmart's still getting it for 0%.
oh no,
Right.
they have to pay. They
Right.
gotta pay exactly what everybody
They
else
need
is
to get
paying.
up where everybody else is.
I couldn't imagine that we'd give Walmart an incentive when there was already a Walmart there in the first place.
There's been a Walmart there since we were
Since
kids.
I've lived here.
Yeah, whether it was across the street.
But we're on our third
Yeah.
Walmart right now.
Yeah.
That's what I mean, so that's been there forever.
Even if it was an incentive, I think 50 years is,
It should be
It's
passed.
over, or
Should be
should.
passed.
Now, AutoQuip, they got a lot of employees in there, but I don't know what their incentive would have been.
Well, you know, you got AutoQuip the same way. They've been down there for 50+ years.
yeah.
Any three of those, AutoQuip, Walmart, and Love's, they're all, I'm sure, turning a profit. I know Walmart and Love's are, so they need to pay their percentage for
Yeah,
trash.
exactly.
It shouldn't be on the backs of the mom and pops or the small business to pay
The-
for.
The one thing we do need to fix in residential are those poly carts outside of the city. We're paying them to pick up their trash.
Yeah, if we're underwater on anything, we need to increase
And
it.
we
need to
are up
correct
two
that.
categories, one residential, one commercial, and
Need to
we need
fix
to
that.
fix those.
And it should be a margin scenario like everybody
Yeah,
else.
whatever the margin is for everybody else, that's what those two
Yeah,
ought to be.
exactly.
But
So
You're probably right.
what I think I'm hearing, to just clarify, is you all would like me to take, and I will update the column on the far left to incorporate the 2% increase that they did this year. And then I will do a proposed rate increase of 10.6%, but I will not add, try not to add to residential, add that 10.6 to the three that aren't paying anything markup right now, plus the commercial.
Well,
Well,
I think
that-
the three that aren't paying anything
They
right now
probably
need to
need a
pay.
bigger
They need to
increase.
pay exactly what the commercial guy's gonna pay
Yes.
at the end of the day.
Yes,
yeah, the margin on their bill needs to be the same margin that it is on my bill.
Exactly.
yes, yeah, it,
Cause it sounded like
right
what you were
now,
saying, you were
right
giving
now,
out 10%.
if we just did it like we were right now, they would have a 28%.
28%.
That's what it needs to be. They need to be on the, unless they can show us an incentive deal that we signed off on or some other council did.
Sure.
Uh,
So yes, theirs would go up more
Right.
percentage-wise than commercial.
Right.
Make it-
And I don't think you have to go find what the commercial,
Okay.
other communities are doing, because that's too much work. You know, it just needs
It
to,
doesn't matter. We
It
know this is
doesn't
what our
matter.
rates are.
We
It
have to
doesn't-
do with what we have to do.
Yeah,
Exactly.
what Edmund pays has nothing to do with what we have.
That's
to
what
pay.
I'm
But
saying.
roughly, when we get done, we will be looking at about $150,000 of additional revenue to operate the city. And, you know, there is overhead, there is the fact that we do the billing and that kind of, so there is some justification for us to
Sure.
have some margin.
I think
So,
that's a
so
better
when we
plan.
get done, we will roughly have about 150,000 increased revenue, and we will set it up, once we agree what the markup is on all of the classifications, we'll prepare the resolution in a way that any year our provider, whether it's Waste Connections or somebody else, each year they go up, these rates will automatically be adjusted based on the percent increase.
and I think they need to know that we would really appreciate a little upfront loyalty. than the backside loyalty.
I passed that along, but,
They should realize that.
and again, our opportunity would be their contract expires in
Coming up pretty
2023 if we decide to put it out
But
for bids.
if their rates are going up, our percentage, if we don't increase if we left our residential percentage at 38%, the rate may go up, but I don't think the percent needs to go up.
No, I don't think so either.
I think
Yeah,
38%.
Yeah,
Pretty
Gross.
good chunk.
yeah.
I understand what you're saying. Okay.
All right, well, you got your orders, I guess.
Okay, so what I said is pretty much.
Yes.
Yeah, I think you're over right.
This will probably come back to you the first meeting in January.
Okay,
And won't be a workshop, it'll probably just be an item on the regular agenda.
Good job, Leroy.
so that takes care of item number 2. Item number 3 is a non-issue then, because we really don't have a resolution. Is that correct?
Correct, until we come up with the new rate schedule, and then we'll prepare the resolution accordingly.
So that, I'll adjourn our, got the Public Works Authority workshop meeting, and our special city council workshop meeting, which is basically the same issue, which we've just discussed. I mean, I'll call it to order, but the.
Correct.
The resolution is still in the same process.
In process.
We're working it up. You're gonna present it in the first meeting in January. So I will adjourn our special city council workshop meeting. And with that, I guess we will wait till 7
No,
o'clock.
we got a new,
No.
no, we can roll right into
The only thing I would suggest is the 2 meetings that start at 7 involves the airport. And I know the city manager from Edmond has come up, and he's already here, but I told him it probably wouldn't be the 7th, so I think he wanted to get a cup of coffee or something. So out of respect to him being here, I would suggest that we wait till
We'll wait
7,
till 7.
if you're all okay with that.